Well,
No może
maybe
nie
I'm not
jestem
wearing a
we
tuxedo.
fraku.
I'm
Na pewno nie
definitely not
jestem we
wearing a
fraku.
tuxedo.
Nie
And I'm not
jestem
in a
nawet w
stage
stroju
outfit
scenicznym.
either.
Jestem w
I'm just in
zwykłych
regular
ciuchach
clothes,
takich,
like this.
A mimo
But
wszystko chce
still,
mi się,
talking about
mówiąc
this album
o tej płycie
and this
i o
artist,
tym artyście,
I really want to
zaprosić
invite
was
you
na
to the dance floor.
parkiet. Nie
Not
z
with
brokatem,
glitter, but with
ale
a
z
whole
dużą
load of
ilością
musical
wyobraźni
imagination,
muzycznej,
with fantastically functioning
z
horns,
fantastycznie funkcjonującym
with
dźwiękiem
atmosphere,
i z klimatem,
because that's
bo tak
exactly
jest
what
bardzo
Curatorium album is like.
Pendo.
Pendo.
Cudownie
It's
Marcin
wonderful that
Pendowski,
Marcin Pendowski is
że
back,
wrócił, że nagrał,
that he recorded
ale
his
oprócz
album
tej, że tą płytą,
with
tą
this
muzyką
record,
zrobił
with this
pieczątkę
music.
taką
He stamped a
konkretną
bold seal of victory
na,
he achieved in
na
life
swoim
after
zwycięstwie,
2021.
które odniósł w życiu po 2021 roku.
May it be a joy to
Niech to
watch,
się dobrze ogląda,
and may this
tej
album
płyty
be a
niech się
joy.
dobrze słucha.
I met Pend while playing weddings in the Boogie Band. He became famous there for some fantastic achievements, such as playing When the Night with his big toe, and making himself coffee whilst playing. He had a very long jack bass cable, and he went to the corner playing and tapping himself, and just to make coffee whilst he was doing it. From that moment on, I knew I was going to like this man a lot for his non-conformist approach to life and everything around him.
Perkuszyny, nie? Przeszkadzajki.
Tomek Waldowski is probably my favourite drummer. He has such a quality that he's able, after one hearing of an idea or a sketch or a song, no matter how difficult, to remember it and play it flawlessly from memory for the rest of his life. I really envy him that. He's very talented. With Marcin and Mariusz Oblowski, we set up a studio, which after some time was given the name SIF Studio. The name is derived from a very specific smell that could be found as soon as you entered the room. Well, right in the front of the entrance, there was a possibility of going to the toilet. And from there was a horrible stench. For several years, we were convinced that this was related to something leaking from the drains. At that point, when we had to move out of there, it turned out that a few years earlier, Pend had simply left a sack of potatoes there, which had not only rotted, but also waterlogged with something very awful.
Tak, ty to grasz gramy to razem z Cikiem i z Krzysiem. Normalnie i typu jest beat, leci beat, raz, czekaj, jest beat, raz, dwa, trzy, beat normalnie, leci beat, gotów. I tu. Znowu. Uwaga, gramy dalej, dobra? Temat wchodzi temat, teraz uwaga.
I remember exactly how I met Marcin Pendowski. I'd come to a concert in Zielona Góra sometime around 2008 after performing with Jurek Szymanska's big band. I played a concert with the big band and there was a jam session at the hotel. I don't remember which one. And there was Marcin Pendofsky waiting, along with 16-year-old Dominik Jaska, who played drums. I joined in on the jam session. I don't remember what we played, but Marcin immediately caught my attention with his striking presence dressed in a beige suit. Well, the name was definitely deserved, Shift Studio, which loosely translates as Mess Studio. That's where we recorded our first Pendo album, right here in Shift Studio. It was a Dabo recording session. I think it was the first time we ever used drums playing equipment, frankly defied all logic. And I remember telling Pendo that in the worst case scenario, we'd ended up with a demo if we decided it to be recorded again. We just record it again. But at worst we'd have a demo recorded, and in the end that's what was released on the first album. I mean, Pendo released it, I just played drums and helped with the mixing.
A jak artykulacyjnie gracie? To.
Staccato.
Ja miałem staccato, bo nie mam sprężynę.
Prosiłbym cię, że ja ci puszczę ten beat, żebyś ten beat...
Dobra, ten zrobiony. Wchodzimy, nagrywamy, panowie.
K. To się idzie zaraz bicie.
Co to za
K, ze Sparkox.
Czy nie, bo już graliśmy kiedyś.
Pamiętam taką rozmowę przed...
I remember a conversation before recording this album, when Marcin already had a clear pan. There were about 40 songs waiting. He'd already picked about 20 for recording. I really cared. I even argued with Marcin a bit, because I really liked the second Gumelat album, and I missed the whole vibe of the first one. That loose, live-in room feel, the space, signature source from the late 60s, early 70s, which was a bit less present on the second album. Then suddenly Marcin takes us to the studio and puts us through there 2 full days recording, with morning to even 20 songs. We were supposed to do 20, we ended up recording 22. We recorded enough material for 2 albums. Most of it was done live, the whole band playing together. What you hear on this album is for the most part live takes from the studio. Only a few instruments or solos were overdubbed. Sometimes someone couldn't join us in the studio and the other part later a guest, but around 70-80% of the album was recorded live, and it was fantastic. Now this is actually my favourite album. I was a huge fan of the first one. Even after the second one came out, I often went back to the first, and I always had this dream that the third one would have a bit of that first album sauce again. But of course it's going to be the third one, another good, more mature record. We feel like we're playing in more interesting ways now. Marcin kept bringing strong compositions, the material remains fresh and appealing, and it turned out on this first album we managed to capture both the youthful energy of the first one and the refinement of the second, which had big horn sections, more guests and more instruments overall. This time we found a way to blend those elements, and paradoxically it was the most alive, the most live take album we've done, and I think that's really cool. With Dominik Jaski, there was one story. One day he told me he had no money, he had nothing to live on. I asked him if I could get him a gig, take him on some kind of job or something. I didn't really have anything at the time, but I happened to know someone who needed a bassist for a wedding, and I said to him, okay, you have to learn to play bass by Friday. You need to play 100 songs. Can you do it? He said, yeah, I can do it. So I gave him a blue G&L 5-string bass. The day of the gig comes, and of course he'd learned everything because he's so talented. He'd actually learnt how to play the bass in a week. At the wedding, the whole band was made up of stand-ins, including him and Kamil Kukla, who was playing drums. Kamil knew that Dominik was an amazing drummer, so he thought there'd been some mistake. I said, hey, I thought he was supposed to be playing drums tonight. Dominik just goes, it's all good, I'm just playing bass tonight. But actually, the accident made him a better bass player in a way. Marcin's always been really into slapping after that accident. He had some trouble with his thumb for a while. He got through it, but he doesn't slap as much anymore, so in a weird way, the accident turned out to be useful too. Obviously, I'm joking, but that's the kind of joke people tell about Marcin, and maybe he's now just finding out this one.
Jakby dało radę głośniej w sensie dać ciebie, bo tak w ostatniej sekundzie ja mam dosyć głośno tutaj.
No podnieś sobie...
Most of this album came together after the accident I had in 2021. I was in pretty bad shape, bad enough that I couldn't even make it to the studio because it's down a flight of stairs. That time I just couldn't walk, but at home I had an electric piano with weighted keys, and for some reason I kept being drawn to it. Honestly, it's kind of amazing. These days, when I feel fine, I got over there when I'm helping my son. He's in music school, so I show him how to play certain things, but back then, I was on the piano non-stop. A lot of ideas came out at that time. Funny thing, most of the tracks ended up in A-flat minor, E-flat minor, because I had a broken thumb, and it was easier to press the black keys. The white ones were harder to reach. So I naturally leaned into the black ones, and that's how the sound of this record started to take shape.
O, super. I
4 takty zawsze mam, 8 taktów mam odpuścić, tak?
sądzę, że tak, i teraz tak, jak nie gra kajperek tematu, to w ogóle ciśniemy ten pływar i
Wiem, a jak jestem...
Przyjechaliśmy w
We came to Ton Studio in Łódź this January in 24.
do studia Ton w Łodzi.
It was freezing, snow
śnieg leżał
everywhere.
wszędzie.
We entered the studio, of course half the day went before we could even start recording because everything had to be mic'd up.
No i
The
co?
charts were
Nutki
ready, but we
przygotowane,
didn't
zero
do
prób.
rehearsal.
Także
That's just
tak
our
jak,
style.
w naszym stylu to wszystko było.
Rehearsal for us is the first time we played the tune.
Pierwsze zagranie utworu. I
Second
potem
time,
drugie zagranie utworu,
that's take one.
Pierwszy take, trzecie
Third
zagranie
time,
utworu, drugi
take
take,
two,
koniec,
that's it,
następny
next
utwór.
tune.
nie wiedzieliśmy gdzie jest raz.
Sorki?
Znaczy w sensie, to nie...
Wiem o co chodzi, bo jak ja mówię, to nie słychać dźwięku i to przykryło akurat... Dobra.
Aha.
Ja zapomniałem, że tutaj jest mikrofon. Uwaga!
We've been working with Pend in this crew for over a decade, 12 or 13 years I think, from totally crappy places like Stiff Studio, where we had natural reverbs because we recorded in stairwells. We've made our way to really great studios like Ton Studio.
Myślę, że będziemy dalej działać i myślę, że jeszcze wiele płyt powstanie w takim sosie. Trzymam kciuki, żeby to doszło do skutku.
Jeszcze.
To już nie pamiętam w jaki sposób się
I
dowiedziałem.
honestly don't remember how I first found out about it. I just remember being in constant contact with Basha, asking her for an update.
Wypytywałem na bieżąco. Ale
But
kto mi o
who
tym
actually
powiedział?
told me about
Wiem,
it?
że była rozmowa, chyba
I think there was a
rozmawiałem
conversation. I must have spoken to Kamil Baranski.
z,
He was the
on
one that
powiedział,
told me
że-
Marcin had an
że
accident.
właśnie Marcin miał wypadek.
I have to
No,
admit,
przyznam się, że to
that
był
was
jeden
one of
z
the
trudniejszych
hardest
momentów
moments
po
for
prostu
me.
dla mnie w ogóle, bo
Way too soon and really
za głupi po prostu
senseless
sposób
way
i
for
za
something like
wcześnie
that to
zdecydowanie,
happen.
żeby coś takiego się wydarzyło. Więc
I'm
wdzięczny
grateful
jestem
that there,
opatrzności,
whatever
że
force
się
was watching
udało
over
po
him,
prostu
that Marcin
Marcina
survived.
uratować. No
And I
i
have
pełen
huge
szacunku
respect for
jestem
him for
dla
making it
Marcina,
through.
że
It takes an
dał radę
incredible
się wygrzebać z
amount
tego.
of mental and physical strength
Wymaga to
to
dużej
pull yourself out of
wytrzymałości
something like
psychicznej,
that.
fizycznej po prostu, żeby się wygramolić z takiej sytuacji.
And Marcin did
się
it.
to udało.
Czwarty, drugi temat.
No. Tak. Spróbujmy tak, no. Bo jak coś to zsunąć zawsze łatwiej.
Dobra.
I oversaw the entire treatment and the hospital care process. Marcin had several surgeries, one of them on my ward. My colleagues, maxillofacial surgeons, put him back together, so now he looks like a human being again. My skull was broken in 12 places. They had to rebuild my eye sockets. My pelvis was held together with wires and plates. Same with my right shoulder, same with my thumb, which still doesn't work properly. Also had several neurological surgeries, serious ones. My doctor told me you need to wear a bag for 2 weeks, but don't wear it all the time, just at night. During the day, there's a little tube with a cap. If you need to pee, just find a tree and let it go. The bag is only for night time. It's just to make sure the bladder muscles stay active or something like that. I said, okay, thanks, and went home. The same day, December 23rd, just before Christmas, I went to the dumpster next to my building and I was looking for cardboard boxes to make sleeves for my vinyl records. It was for the Gummelet vinyls, which I'd just released. People were messaging me about them whilst I was in my hospital bed, so I told them as soon as I get home I'll pack them and send them out. So I'd shuffle over to the dumpster, moving slowly. I'm trying to pull the cardboard out, still had the metal plates in my right shoulder, and then this little cap on the tube slipped out somehow. I was only wearing light-coloured sweatpants. I got pissed like a Norse. I said to myself, well, great. Just then, this old guy, maybe 75-year-old man, pulls up the car, rolls down the window and says to me, "Sir, there's a much better dumpster behind the building. There are dry cardboard boxes there. You can really build something out of it. This one's useless, all soaked, total crap."
Że w środku chcesz
Tak, tak.
Ja
Niemal dokładnie
Almost
10
10
lat
years
temu,
ago,
przy okazji
during the
warsztatów
Blues Now Boring
Blues Now
workshop
Boring w
in
miejscowości
Kruszyn near
Kruszyn koło
Bolesławiec,
Bolesławca. Chodziłem kiedyś do
I
szkoły muzycznej
used to
i
attend a music
postanowiłem
school.
wrócić do instrumentu po
After
wielu
many
latach,
years, I
Tam
decided to
poznałem
return to my
Marcina,
instrument,
który
and that's where I
okazał
met
się
Marcin,
osobą
an energetic,
bardzo ciekawą,
fascinating
pełną
person, and
energii
we
i
instantly hit it off.
zakumplowaliśmy się od razu.
A o co?
Że za mało czekaliśmy. Za mało czekaliśmy
Na
po temacie. Trzeba było zagrać groove, potem dopiero solem saksu. A wcześniej to solo wlazło jakby z solówką.
There's also this funny thing. Marcin was the one mixing the album. We hadn't seen each other for a while, maybe 2 months, since I'd heard the rough track selections from that big session when we were still adding solos and stuff. The one day I showed up at his place, sat down and listened to the whole album, fully mixed and mastered, start to finish. Honestly, it sounds great. I really like it. I didn't expect it to come out this good. I thought we might end up overproduced, overdone, that the live vibe from the studio would get lost, that there'd be too many production tricks and effects, but it turns out it's really good. Warm, natural, easy on the ears, and my guitars sound fantastic, which isn't easy. Not everyone manages to keep the tone brought into the studio without messing it up. And now for real, all the fans out there.
Dobra, teraz już naprawdę dla wszystkich fanów.
Obie ostatnie płyty
We recorded both our last 2 albums live at Ton Studio in Łódź, Poland.
Realizatorem był
The sound engineer was Maciej Stanecki and Krzysztof Don.
I cóż, no jakby ja uwielbiam...
I absolutely love going there because the working process is incredibly organic. Working with tape, fully analog, and it's fantastic. For the last album, which we recorded in a rush, we managed to lay down 18 songs in 2 days, although we actually forgot one of them.
Natomiast
When it came to the sound of my drums, I decided to go for a completely dampened tone. Since the store didn't deliver the factory-made dampers, the nice durable ones, I just grabbed some old unused t-shirts, wrapped them around all the drums, I dampened the bass drum with a blanket, the old school style. We closed the drums inside a box to get that tight, dry, sort of boxy sound. Combined with the tape recorder and Ton Studio's fully analog chain, it just sounded amazing. Our collaboration started. Marcin invited me to record this album. I was really pleasantly surprised. The record had a vibe I absolutely loved, kind of in the spirit of Medyski, Martin and Wood, the Buddhist band, with some sonic reference to the big beat and old school 60s, 70s sound. The streets of San Francisco kind of vibe. I really connected with that. But what completely blew me away was the idea that the guys came up with right from the start. Marcin and our drummer, Tom Wadowski, suggested recording of the guitars out in the hallway, placed closed mics on it, and the guys captured the massive reverb of the corridor using 2 condenser mics set up on the mezzanine. I mean, the fact that they even wanted to go through all that effort, that kind of sonic sculpting, was amazing. And because of that, the reverb you hear on the guitars and a lot of reverb on the first album is all natural. The echo of massive corridor in an old communist era building. That really blew me away, gave me so much energy, and honestly, working on that was such an incredible experience. It stuck with me ever since.
Basie F, D-smol, S7. Co? Zjazd do G, do G. Przykładacja Des, S, przodem As, Des, S, As.
This album was very spontaneous, but I think that's where its strength lies. Most importantly, we finally had a working Hammond, which had never happened before. In the past, a few of us had to record using the same worn-out Hammond, but on this one, fantastic. Big respect for Ton Studio for that.
I temat, poczekaj.
I've always been a bit intimidated by the jazz scene in Warsaw, that crowd of virtuosos. But here I was genuinely thrilled that Marcin, Tomek Wadowski and Judassz
że oni po prostu kochają grać
all
piosenki,
love
kochają
playing songs,
prostą,
simple,
skomplikowaną muzykę.
straightforward music.
Bo ja zawsze z tym
I've
jazzem
always flirted with
romansowałem,
jazz, but
ale
deep down,
przyciągnęło mnie do takiej estetyki bluesowej,
I
po
was
prostu
more
to
drawn
mi gra
to
w
the
sercu.
blues
I
aesthetic.
zresztą miałem
That's
takich
really
swoich
what speaks to my
mistrzów, na
heart.
przykład Adam Levy, czy
I had my own heroes too,
goście,
like
którzy
Adam Levy or Jim
świetnie
Campolano,
w takich sytuacjach jak po
players who
prostu
know
zespół
exactly how to
Jones,
fit into something
czy-
like
czy-
a
czy-
Nora
czy-
Jones
czy
song.
Toma Waitsa,
Or in the case of Tom Waits, I'm thinking Mark Ribot.
No i okazuje się, że oni mnie z tym
And these guys
bluesowym,
welcomed me
takim
with
moim
my simple,
backgroundem i z tym
bluesy
prostym
playing
jazzem
into their
wzięli w
world.
swoje szeregi, no i
And they were actually excited that 2 or 3 chords or just a few notes
że po prostu
in the style of Albert
czy-
Collins or B.B.
dwa,
King
trzy
could work
dźwięki
beautifully with their
zarejestrowałem
jazz-based
Collinsa czy
ideas.
B.B. Kinga, że to też można po prostu świetnie pokleić z tymi jazzowymi tematami.
I think I
I
created a
z
pretty
tego
cool
się,
mix,
moim zdaniem,
kind of
zrobił
sauce, if
dosyć
you will.
fajny sos. Po prostu styl jakby to, czym Marcin się inspirował, ten styl, ten kierunek, w którym Marcin
The
podążał.
direction and style that Marcin was
I to,
inspired
że po
by,
prostu, że
and
ja
following,
na
I
przykład
stepped
na
into
gitarze
that with
szedłem
my
z prostym
blues playing,
bluesowym
and I was really
tempo.
impressed that they invited
To
me
mi
in
też imponowało, że mnie zaprosili
And
i
that's
że, i że w
grown
ogóle z tego się robi
into
taki
something
fajny,
special.
taki fajny twór.
Tutaj jest nasza sekcja.
Nie no, gdzie?
Takiej muzyce?
No,
Cześć, powiedział. Wybrali go 2000. Super, jaki F ma być?
Ale ja gram akurat bez
F-All 6.
ale ja gram tak z noną bez seksty. Raz zagrałem, jak usłyszałem 7+. Ale specjalnie. Ale to ja... Tutaj naprawdę inny kajper, tu jest inny kajper.
potem sugerujesz?
I met Pend in 2010 when he came to stay with us at our place in Warsaw. It was Kowal who brought him. Shout out to Kowal. Well, we ended up living together for a few months, basically in the same flat, actually in the same room, well, to be honest, in the same bed. For the sake of the curatorium project, I put together a large brass section, 12 players in total. I affectionately called it the Warsaw Funky Horn Ensemble. Buddy of mine, Christian Gaunt, great music lover, told me, if there's a horn section, it absolutely needs a name. You've got to come up with something. So I did. We recorded all of them together in one room at wydawnictwo studio during a single recording session. Everyone stood in a circle, each with their own close mic, but overall blend, that shared vibe was beautifully captured on the record. That sound really does a fantastic job on the track. We really brought together a lot of horns for both this and the previous record, and at the time I was like, wow, seriously, mind-blowing. I don't think I've ever done a session like that before. Well, maybe with a big band, but it's a different story. Here we had a horn section spread out over a ton of instruments, 6 saxophones, 3 trombones, 3 trumpets, total powerhouse of sound, and it was truly amazing. And of course we had to carefully set up all the mics, overheads in the center of the room to capture the space. And everyone had their sheet music ready, just like at Tom's studio. Play it through once and boom, we're recording. Marcin brought in some fantastic players with a great tone. I think the Warsaw Funky, what was it?
Horn Ensemble.
Yeah, the Warsaw Funky Horn Ensemble. It's probably the best horn section east of Radom.
No to teraz już jesteś rozgrzany, można nagrywać.
Dobra, dawajcie mi muzykę. Jestem gotowy.
Hyperek, chodź.
It's a bighorn section.
Yeah, 12 person.
Bighorn section.
Gramy.
To give them a name.
Gramy, dawaj. Tonic Bridge, dobra? Cichutko, długie nutki, sklejamy to. Niziutko, no, niziutko. Gotowi? Jest gotowość? Raz, dwa, trzy. Super.
No tak ładnie.
Super, super. Dziękuję, mamy to. To wszystko, kolec, to mamy to. Zdjęcie, chodźcie.
No, także
Yeah, so
nagrywanie
according
na
to tape,
taśmę,
that sound was incredible.
Niesamowity sound.
We
ustawianie,
really
żeby
took
to
our
było jak
time
najlepiej i
setting
generalnie
everything
ten
up
sos,
to make it
który
as good as
nagraliśmy
possible.
wtedy, to było
Honestly,
już
the vibe we captured in that
naprawdę
session was
bardzo
really
dobre.
solid by my
Ja, to
standards.
na moje standardy.
I could have just taken
To
those
wziął ten
studio
mix ze
tracks and
studia,
released them as they
naprawdę
were,
to wypuścił.
and it would have
I to
been really great,
było naprawdę
no
świetne.
doubt. Above all, I'm really glad that we managed to record this third album, especially considering that Pend's accident was quite serious and shook everyone. Thankfully, Pend is the kind of person who, if anyone is going to pull through something like that, it's him. And I think this album really lifted his spirits, and maybe even gave him wings.
Nie wiem gdzie. Premiera to na Torwarze chyba już, co?
No narodowym.
Pendzik, that's Marcin Pendofsky. Now you're probably thinking I'm going to talk about his bass playing, about how phenomenal he is in the bass. Come on, you know that already. Just go on YouTube, click literally or any video and you'll instantly want to buy You Learn a Bass or something like that. But seriously, to me, Marcin is above all the hero of countless amazing stories. Most of them I probably shouldn't tell, but maybe I'll share just one. Marcin's the kind of guy who walks on stage, no hesitation, like on a white horse, looks at the monitor engineer and says, "Lots of bass for everyone, please." And you know what? He's right. I'm with him.
Uwaga.
Czekaj.
Kurde, Marcin.
Nie działa mi coś bas. No działa.
Uwaga.
Raz.
From the very first note of that debut album, it was clear that something was completely unique on the Polish music scene. At least in my opinion. Look, I've got thousands of records. I keep them all super organised. But every now and then, I play something thinking it's one thing and it turns out to be something else. And that was exactly my first reaction. Wait a minute, this can't be a Polish record. No one in Poland plays like that. Both we as artists and scientists try to describe the world outside the window, but they tend to do it in a very complex way, whilst we, at least in my view, should aim to do it as simply as possible. That's why my themes are uncomplicated and my music is quite transparent. It has simple structures and simple textures. There's no rule to say music has to be difficult. It's meant to move us energetically, to activate something in us, to affect us. It's a pure beam of good energy.
You want to be conducting or something?
Yeah. Dziękuję ślicznie. Well done. Well done. Dziękuję. Dlaczego?
Sounds awesome, guys. No, really, really, it sounds really, really nice. Big horn section. Hi, hi.
Hey.
I think we're gonna have to give you guys a name,
Sorry, I don't know.
Tonic Tone Warriors or something.
Tutaj sobie stajemy.
I would like to thank sincerely everyone who contributed to the creation of the Kuratorium album, especially Krzysztof from Ton Studio, Maciek Zendensky, Jacek Czeszensky from Widobry Ton Studio, all the guys from the Warsaw Funky Horn Assembly, all of my bandmates, and everyone who jumped on the features. This album wouldn't exist without you. Having you all by my side, that's something truly amazing. For almost 30 years, I've been following Marcin's musical journey, and I find his original project to be the most compelling.
To jest premiera płyty Kuratorium zespołu Pendofsky. Trzeci utwór nazywa się Tango.
To me, the idea of incorporating painting, personal artwork, where the cover is not just a graphic design, but a documentation of painting, fits perfectly to that vision. That's why I tried to convince Marcin to go with this approach. My first encounter with Pendofsky happened at the Barometer Club. During a jam session the guys were playing. I remember coming into the jam, urging some friends, didn't know what to expect. Didn't know anyone in Warsaw. I just wanted to play well. When I entered the club, I saw a whole group of amazing musicians, and I stepped on the stage with a bit of uncertainty. I really didn't want to mess it up. Played my set, and during the break of that very first jam in Warsaw, Pen came to me and immediately offered me a spot in his band. He said, "There's a gig coming up, you in? The pay's this and that." It's like, super chill, we've known each other forever. I was a bit surprised, of course. I said yes, and I played that show with great joy. I have to say, that was my first real gig in the city, and everything that happened in my life afterwards, to in some way, tracks back to that moment at Barometer. vocals are a bit controversial, but I see them more from a comedic angle, I'd say, than something ultra serious. It's not like they're super deep emotional vocals. They got that kind of hip-hop vibe, which is fine. I mean, I do have a bit of an allergy to hip-hop, but that's all right. I can deal with it. Polish jazz records tend to be deadly serious. I mean, either it's total wedding band stuff, playing bebop for the 1,500th time, which just feels irrelevant, or it's avant-garde, which can be interesting, sure. But this kind of approach of music that's fun, tasty, soulful, that's just what I call music, that's rare. And this album definitely has that, 100%. The Kuratorium album is hands down one of my favourites for the past few months. It's the melodies, the top-notch production, but also the way every detail in the music has been so carefully crafted. I've known Marcin Pendofsky for at least 10 years. I say at least because that's when he published his debut album. To date, he's had 3 albums. This one has been released in 2 ways. I'm very happy about it because first in CD format, and now we get the album in vinyl format. And it's still strictly limited. I really like such flavours, musical stories, if we're dealing with good sophisticated music. And here is the perfect link that's always present in Marcin's musical world. Funky, jazz, strongly expanded by a fantastic horn section which is called Warsaw Funky Horn Ensemble. It sounds wordly, and a wordly album I hold in my hands. I heartily recommend this album because once it's arrived on my turntable, it does not want to leave it. Good morning, my name is Piotr Metz and I have always enjoyed listening to music. It's probably my main occupation in life. That's why the best gift I can get is a record. That's particularly a vinyl record. But it's not just an ordinary record, it's the kind of record a true audiophile can weight just by holding it in their hand. It's 180 grams. And it isn't just madness or eccentricity of people who own 10 records and audio gear worth $1 million slotty. Right now, I divide music into art and entertainment. We're not talking about entertainment, we're talking exclusively about art. Art demands the kind of attention that vinyl record requires. When we listen to vinyl, we flip it to the other side. We can't be texting or browsing the internet. These are simple, forgotten rituals that I deeply believe in. I also believe that music, the kind that is art, not just entertainment, is created with people with true passion. I've been observing Pendofsky perhaps from a distance since the album somewhat unconventionally, titled after his name, Logomulet, and now his latest release. Not only did he create the Warsaw Horn, sounding like a proper New York big band, But he also came up with something I have to admit, as a music enthusiast, I'd never heard. I didn't know such thing as Comnibus existed. It turns out this is a bottomless well. What's more, music, or rather as I now prefer to call it, contemporary improvised music instead of just jazz, is something I've learnt firsthand has no end. Rock music, which I grew up on and still love, holding no more secrets for me. It rarely surprises me anymore. Jazz, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. I know I won't live long enough, even if I'm blessed with good health, to absorb it all. And that's why, even though I'm on the other side of the barricade, merely a listener, I feel a kind of spiritual kinship with those who create this kind of music.